My name is Nim Kidd. I'm the Chief of the Texas Division of Emergency Management. And we're here to talk today about the continued response to this severe weather event and the latest weather projections. We are currently, as you can see behind me, at an elevated increase. Our State Operations Center is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And when we start focusing on major events and taking care of local Texans. Our overall message is that life safety comes first, and that working with our local partners, we're doing everything possible to make sure that as Texans are rescued, they have a safe place to stay, a dry place to stay, that they're getting shelter, and I know that that's happening at the local level. And then the next phase of that is working with our volunteer agencies and organizations, our faith-based organizations, and our federal partners as we move into individual assistance and public assistance phases. So we have several maps and graphs here today that I want to go over with you. We've got them on the screens beside you as well as we have them here. And if you're interested in them, we can have our Media and Communications Office email you the actual pictures if you want to use them. One of the things that I want to show here and talk about is the drought from 2014 to where we are today. Pretty impressive change in the graphics, right? That's a lot of rain. So then we're going to kind of go through this one by one, and then the next one is we want to talk about, this is the monthly total of rain from May to today. That's a lot of rain, and you can see in some cases where we've got these dark reds and purples, we are 10 to 15 inches of rain over certain parts of the state. You put that kind of rain in any surface on any area, we're going to get some severe flooding. And that's why it's so critical that we continue to get this message out. The next thing that we want to talk about, and will be in the future, is that even if it's not raining in your part of the state, the way that the rivers run, you could get flooding in your area under blue clear skies. And it's so critical that we get that message out that people in the community need to pay attention to their local weather forecast, not drive around barricades, and remember to turn around, don't drown. This next one here talks about the current threat impact for today, for Friday, and for Saturday. And as you can see, there are very few pieces or properties in this state that are not impacted over the next 3 days. And for the meteorologist in the room, you know that it gets harder to predict the further out we go of where the weather will be and what it will be doing. This is the best data that we have working with our National Weather Service partners, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and the Gulf Coast River Forecast Center. It takes all three of those folks to help us make smart decisions about where we place our resources in the areas of the state that we need to evacuate. You've heard Governor Abbott say that we want to evacuate and shelter instead of rescue. This is the science that helps us make those decisions and share with our local community partners of where the rain that we're getting is going to go and impacts downstream. This graph shows the Gulf Coast River Forecast Center's gauges and where they are in the various flood stages. The Corps of Engineers map will show us that almost all of our lakes are full and they're at capacity. More rain coming is going to cause more problems down the road. So these sensors that are out along these major rivers help us better understand what's happening in near real time to share that message with our local partners. And as you can see, all of these rivers, and one of the next maps that we'll talk about, all of these rivers are going to heavily impact a lot of our downstream communities. This is probably one of the most important slides that I need your help in making sure that we get out. Because what it does is it talks about the river crest times for the major rivers that we're dealing with. And so as you look along the Red River, you will see through the next week, even if the rain stops today, these rivers will crest in these locations. And so if it stops raining, we're not out of this. Even though the forecast says we're going to get 3 to 5 days of rain, and we might get 3 days of sunshine, all of these rivers will continue to crest and they will come out of their banks. So it's very important that we share this message with our local partners downstream. The way that we use that data is to help pre-position state resources, state assets ahead of the storm. This map is produced every morning. It's out in our situation report that you can find on our website. And these dots will generally move around the state based on the threat. So you can see Texas Military Forces, Texas Parks and Wildlife, the Department of Public Safety. For a while we even had Louisiana Air National Guard helicopters in our state. They've gone home now. But to look at where those things are located is exactly where you will see the river flooding that is heading. Talk a little bit about our partners at the American Red Cross, and this is from their graphics. These are areas that they have put shelters, food, water, health service, mental counseling, or relief supplies all across the state in their impacted areas. So once we do, hopefully, evacuation ahead of rescue, if we have to do rescue, we need people to have a safe place to stay. Our local partners, our local churches, and the American Red Cross are great partners in that, and I want to thank them for their efforts. Now, I want to talk a little about this slide, and we will put it back up in a few minutes. But this is, I think, a question that a lot of people are asking is, where's FEMA? When do we get to the declaration point? I can tell you in the room behind me, FEMA has had representatives sitting in that room since the day that we increased our activation on May the 8th. They have been 100% with us, 100% our partners through this entire process. But when we start talking about the individual assistance and the public assistance thresholds that we as a state are mandated to meet, you may understand better why FEMA is not out doing things in the public that you see that they're doing. Instead, they're here working with us to support us. So I want to bring this process back up in a minute. It's kind of a busy map, but what it depicts, and it helps us keep on track, is which counties have declared a disaster, which counties have submitted DSOs, that's an important word for you to remember, disaster summary outlines, which counties have completed PDAs, preliminary damage assessment, another very important word for you to know, and then where they are with their request and what all we have received. Now, we try to keep this as current as possible, so you can see this was 1,200 hours. I believe that we may have had a few more come in since the time that this was printed. And I think we will see even more come in over the next hours and the next days as the rain continues to increase and the rivers continue to rise and more communities are impacted. So this is a very fluid situation and will continue to be so. So it's very hard for us to get wrapped around some numbers at some times. And then the last graphic I want to share with you before we go back is the FEMA public assistance categories. And this is where I really need your help in getting part of the message out about what do individuals get, what do governments get, the difference between IA and PA, and the different categories. Category A and B are considered emergent. That's things that we need to do right now. Debris and emergency protective services. That's the cost of government response, that's the cost of sheltering, that's the cost of moving people out of harm's way. The next category, C through G, are considered public work. They're long-term projects. They're repairing road systems. They're repairing and replacing water control facilities, public buildings and equipment, public facilities, and parks and recreation. This is public assistance. This is money that goes back to the government. This is not individual assistance. So I want to talk a little bit about individual assistance. Texas, according to 44 CFR, the federal regulation, needs over 800 homes that are considered major or destroyed by FEMA standards. Now, what that means is not just water in your yard, and we're talking floods here, not just water in your yard or water even on your carpet of your house. That would be considered minor. Generally, we look at 18 inches, or if you can see on the wall, about the mark of our plugs, where the electrical plugs are. If the water is below that plug, FEMA sees that as a minor damage to that home. If it's above that plug, it can get to major, and if it's at about the 4 feet mark or higher, then it's considered destroyed. Those are federal guidelines. We put that out for all of our locals to use, and the local partners are the first ones that go out and count the number of homes and mark where the water lines were in those homes to tell us if they are affected, minor, major, or destroyed. We collect all of those numbers. The next most important thing that we have to figure out is who is insured and who is not insured, because FEMA will not allow a duplication of benefits. So if you have homeowners insurance but not flood insurance, chances are you're going to count towards the uninsured category. FEMA is the keeper of all of the flood mitigation maps and the flood insurance policies. So they are sharing with us, and I think you've heard that there's about 3,000 or 3,500 flood claims to those policies in Texas. And FEMA will be the one to give you the better answers on that. But as those homes that we see impacted, if they have insurance, they come off of our list to go towards our declaration status. As a state, Texas needs $35.4 million to get to our PA threshold. That's in these categories, and it's also uninsured loss. If a community builds a new fire station, and that fire station has a bond that goes along with it, and they have to carry an insurance policy, that insurance policy pays first. FEMA would only pick up the deductible or what is not covered. And that's why it takes us a little time to figure out if we have met our thresholds. It's not as easy as these first two where we're going to go out and save lives. It's not as easy as opening up shelters and putting people in shelters, but it's more of a long-term process like an insurance claim of where the federal damages are and ensuring that there is not a duplication of benefits. Make sense so far? All right, let me get through here real quick, and then we'll probably start working on some question and answer. So we've talked about our Corps of Engineer partners and their lakes and their waterways. We've talked about streams, and one of the most important things that I'll need your help with as we brand the end of this message is turn around, don't drown. We've got to get that message out. Turn around, don't drown. Do not drive through a low water crossing that has water over the road, and do not drive around a barricade blocking a road even if you don't see water on the road. When we talk about flash floods here in Central Texas, that's truly what it is. You've seen the damage in Wimberley. That is rising water coming very fast, very hard, and sometimes very high. And there is nothing that we can do to stop that other than stay out of its way. Texas Animal Health Commission and several of our other partners are also working livestock issues. So when we have, you'll see pets in shelters that the Red Cross and our other partners are working with to take care of pets, very important, as well as our agriculture issues. The Texas Animal Health Commission has some cowboys and other things that they're using to go out and rescue cows that may be in flooded areas and impacted. I'll tell you what, let's take a few questions now if y'all are all right with that, and I'll be happy to answer some, and then I'll do some closing remarks. So any questions?
So you guys opened the OEM May 4th. You said you ramped up more efforts May 8th, looking at specific rivers that could crest. Am I on track? You've been looking at some of these areas prior to the flooding. What I guess what some people are asking is, why didn't folks get more of a warning? Hey, you know, you guys need to get out of here. There's potential in the next couple of weeks that there could be severe flooding.
Yeah. So I think I understand the question, and we're going almost a month now, right?
Right.
So we're at the end of May now. If you remember, it started out with severe weather. We started out with tornadoes. There were a lot of tornado warnings by the National Weather Service that were put out. There were a lot of tornado watches that were put out ahead of those warnings. And the thing that I need your help with is to make sure that we are pushing the message. NOAA weather radios save lives. You've got to have a NOAA weather radio in your home. You need to have one in your office. That you turn it to silent so you don't have to listen to it whenever it's not going to impact you. You put in your county code, and when the Weather Service puts out a warning or a watch, the watch comes before the warning, then you take action to that and start paying attention. So we started out with severe weather, tornadoes, and hail. With all of the rain we got, we moved into flooding. And you can see by the maps that as our lakes and reservoirs started to fill up, that's what caused some of the downstream flooding. But when you put 6 or 8 or 11 inches of rain in a short period of time in any community, there is going to be a flooding problem.
So it sounds like you're saying personal responsibility with a little bit of planning.
I absolutely agree with that. I mean, we all have to take care of ourselves and take care of our families first. There'll never be enough government resources to provide everything that every individual needs. And the help that I need from you is to make sure that we're pushing the message. There are a lot of communities and a lot of businesses that will donate NOAA weather radios to the people that can't afford them. It's not an expensive tool. It's 25, 30 bucks. Some of them are even cheaper than that. But for the amount of money they will save you in your life, I guarantee it's a purchase well spent.
When was that room behind you? You said the room behind you is 24/7 operational. When was it elevated to that level of emergency?
Sure. There's another room behind the glass on this other side over here that's always staffed with 3 to 5 staff members. The room behind us starts to fill up during any event. This particular event, it was May the 8th at 7 o'clock in the morning when we truly increased and brought in our State Emergency Management Council partners.
What types of things are they doing in there?
So a lot of it is supporting local government. Remember, in Texas and across the nation, all disasters are local. Mayors and county judges are kings and queens. They are the emergency management directors of their domains once they declare the disaster. And so our job is to continue to support them in their resource request, working with their planners to anticipate their needs, and making sure, like some of the resources you saw on a previous map, are in the right place at the right time to support them. So that could be logistics requests, could be boats, could be aircraft, could be help with shelters, and then our other volunteer agencies that are out there.
This may be a little preemptive because I know we're still in the middle of rescue and recovery, but once we've sort of moved into the next phase, are you guys going to look at some of these areas they crested, look at more of the floodplains in Texas, sort of develop a plan for the next event?
Yeah, I think we constantly do that. If you go back and look at a local government level, at the amount of money local governments have spent on capital improvement projects over the last 5 to 10 years, I can't even count that high. I mean, we are constantly at the local level doing flood mitigation, flood improvement, street and drainage projects to care for and be ready for the next event. At the state and federal level, FEMA has put hundreds of millions of dollars in Texas in flood mitigation projects. So I would say that has always been an ongoing process. And in some cases, you're going to see areas of the state, when this is all said and done, that received as much rain as they did, whether it was in Tropical Storm Allison in 2001 or in the floods of 2007, that didn't have as much damage because of the mitigation projects that were put in place. Now, that doesn't mean you put 11 inches of rain in any community, it's going to flood. But I think that's a constant project that both the local, state, and federal partners are always looking at.
Can you go over the response again? You said we don't see FEMA, but they're here. Explain why we don't see them out in the field right now again.
Sure, it's a great question. And the reason is because there are federally mandated thresholds for individual assistance and public assistance that we are mandated to meet before we ask for help.
Where are we on that?
Good question. And so as we keep working through that process, the individual cities and counties submit to us disaster summary outlines, which is information gathered at the worst possible time. Rain can still be coming down, floodwaters can still be coming up, and they capture these categories on that disaster summary outline and the number of homes. The DSO gives us a dollar amount that is a rough guess. The next step is the PDA process, the preliminary damage assessment. So we've done about 7 of those already. Cook, Van Zant, Navarro. We've had to reschedule Grayson and Denton counties because we had them scheduled and the rains came in and it started flooding again. And then we've got 4 or 5 other counties that they're scheduled for. Those PDA numbers are the magic numbers that tell us where we are in our threshold. And with the number of communities that you saw to only be at the point of having 5 or 7 of those done right now, we're not quite at our thresholds.
So out of the 37 current disaster declarations, you've received only 7, and it sounds like most of them were in kind of northern, like where the tornado damage, nothing like in Hayes or like south where most of the flood.
Yeah, so let's clear that up. The governor has declared 46 counties in Texas today. And out of those 46 counties, the ones that have been able to complete were mostly in West Texas, where they got early tornadoes and were able to survey their damage and go out in decent weather to do their PDAs, or in Van, where the tornadoes hit early on, and then Cook, Denton, Grayson counties we had to reschedule. The problem is it's time consuming in order to get this PDA right to get the true numbers.
So it's incumbent for those counties to get it done so FEMA can get out there?
That's correct, but it's a partnership. The locals are there, our folks are there, and FEMA is there to write these PDAs. So that when that happens, a lot of the communities, they're still getting rain. They're not out of this fight part of it yet, the life safety part of it. To say now that we want to go and do insurance claims or try to figure out where money would be available is a little tough for them.
But can't FEMA also still provide supplies and personnel if they are providing that information to the state and FEMA? Do they not do more than just insurance claims related sort of stuff?
So the supplies and personnel that FEMA provides also comes from local and state governments. And at this time, the local and state governments have met those needs.
So they don't need any more help.
Well, I'm not saying they don't need any more help because we're not out of this fight yet. We've still got a long period to go. But when you look at communities that have all of the shelters opened up from the Red Cross, all of the cots that have been put out, the meals that have been served, I don't think we have any communities or citizens that are out there that their basic needs are not being met. And then they need to work with their insurance companies. We need to go back and look at the IA damage to thresholds to see what they are. And even then, the max grant from FEMA to an individual is $33,000. That's under the IA threshold number. $33,400, maybe a little bit of change. But that has to meet all of the qualifications about, are they the owner, or are they a renter? Are they a tenant? Who owns the house? What kind of other insurance? All of that has to be worked out. But that is secondary compared to the life safety needs that we're taking care of today.
You said that is it 35 or $34 million? That's the threshold?
For public assistance. So we got to keep these, this is why it's so important. I'll take all the time that we need to clear this up. Individual assistance goes from FEMA to families, 800 homes, major or destroyed, and they must be un or underinsured. That's IA. That benefit from the feds to the locals could be as high as $33,400 and some change. So stop there and now talk about public assistance, which are these categories, money that goes back to governments and private nonprofits. Those totals for the state have to reach $35.4 million of uninsured loss there as well. And then each county has a specific threshold that that county has to meet. And that's all based on population.
And we don't know where we are on the 35.4.
We have the initial rough estimates, and about 7 of the 46 counties have been able to complete the more refined estimates, which are the actual numbers that we use. And with those numbers, we are not at that threshold yet.
Any idea what the rough estimate is right now?
I'd have to go and look at it. We'll get that to you in a little bit. But again, that'll change today again with the people that we have out in the field doing PDAs.
Where it is today, that's worth mentioning.
I'll look and see if we can find that. But the other piece is, we're out there, FEMA's out there, the locals are out there. They all go back and compare those numbers to make sure we're singing from the same sheet of music. So it might take us a little bit of time to get that number.
What do you predict we're going to get there?
And it's so hard to say. I mean, it's really so hard to say because of the insured and uninsured loss. And I wish I could tell you yes, and I wish I could tell you no because we didn't have that much damage. I just don't know yet.
What did you say earlier was the number of individual claims that are rolling in? I think you had made some kind of estimate.
Yeah, FEMA had told me yesterday, and maybe it was early this morning, that they've had over 3,000 flood claims through the FEMA flood insurance program. And really we need to reach back out to FEMA and get that number from them. That'll be more accurate. They'll probably have it up to the day.
Is the worst over?
I don't think so. I would like to say that it is, but I'm not sure that the worst is over because of the way that the weather is running, and we are so saturated in almost all parts of Texas. And so any rain that comes into our lakes and rivers and waterways, I think is going to come out and come outside of its banks again. And again, that's why it's so critical that you help us stay on message of don't drive through low water crossings, don't drive past a barricade, turn around, don't drown, save your life, and possibly save the life of a first responder that would have to come in and get you.
What area, what county do you think was hit the hardest?
Again, that's a relative answer. I mean, if it was the county that I live in, that was the one that I would say that got hit the hardest. If it was the one you lived in, you might say the same thing. When you start talking about individual survivors, you know, it's a tough answer. It's hard to say. Now, we can tell you statistically which counties got more water than the others, and I think the map that we have shows who got the heaviest rain. But even with that amount of rainfall, I would be slow to answer because it's going to hit a river and it could wind up flooding a community that didn't get near that amount of rain and take out those homes along the riverbanks.
And rains way up in North Texas still affect us here because all that's going to come down to Colorado, come down to Brazos, come down.
No doubt. The thing that I think the most staggering statistic that the Weather Service and the River Forecast Center has shared with me is 10 to 14 days to dewater the state once the rain stops. That means we've got a long way to go.
What does dewater the state mean?
It means getting all of the lakes and rivers back into a normal operation so that they're not outside of the banks. The water that hits up on the north part of the state and is running down through the various water districts and water areas, by the time it gets out of the state, whether through absorption or running out into the Gulf, 10 days to 2 weeks.
That's if it stopped raining today.
Yes, sir. Anything else?